All right, it is just after the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to say welcome. My name is Dory Larson. I'm the EV Program Coordinator with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for a virtual Ride and Drive webinar. We really appreciate that you've chosen to be here for it. We normally do our rides and drives in person, and it's an awesome experience. However, with COVID-19, it's caused us to shift gears on how we can continue to serve our communities. So I would like to, at this point, hand it over to our co-host, Lindsay Naradka, who is the Sustainability Manager with the City of Boca Raton, Florida. Lindsay.
Thank you and good afternoon. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to attend this webinar. We had been planning to do this in person, as Dory said, and then of course COVID kind of made us change our plans. But I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. I am Lindsay Roland Naradka. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the City of Boca Raton, and my contact information is on the slide if you have any questions for me or want to reach out to me afterwards. But the City of Boca Raton wanted to do this ride and drive because we do have some goals and strategies related to electric vehicles in the city. So right now, what we're doing is we have some public charging infrastructure available. We have charging stations at 3 different locations in the city, shown on the map here, and are hoping to expand that to some more of our public spaces and parks over the next couple of years. We have an EV-ready ordinance that requires chargers to be installed in all parking lots, new parking lots or redeveloped parking lots with 50 spaces or more, 1 charging station per 50 spaces, plus laying the conduit for future charging stations when that need becomes necessary. We're also working internally on our own fleet. We have practices in place that try to make our fleet as efficient as possible, and we're looking at policies to increase the number of electric vehicles in that as well. And the reason that we're doing that is because we do have identified electric vehicles as being a strategy towards meeting some of our goals in our sustainability action plan. For example, vehicle emissions are a major source of air pollution, and we do have goals related to improving health of our residents through improving air quality. We also have goals related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and our recent greenhouse gas inventory did show that community-wide transportation was responsible for 36% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So anything that we can do to either reduce vehicle miles traveled or to make sure that those vehicle miles are traveled in vehicles with lower carbon fuel use, such as electricity, then that's going to help us reduce our emissions in this large bucket of transportation. And so that is the reason that we are here. And I want to pass it now to Amanda, who's going to talk a little bit about the library's commitment on this.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name's Amanda Liebel, and I'm representing the City of Boca Raton Public Library today. We have 2 libraries in our city, the Spanish River Library and the Downtown Library. And we're lucky enough to have multiple car charging stations at both libraries that I can say from experience, I see it every day. They get used all day, every day. So people are really enjoying them and appreciating them. Our downtown library is also pretty special because when it was built in 2013, it was built with the intention of being a quote-unquote green building. So that building is a LEED Silver certified building, which means that it has been made with efforts to be green. So for example, our library has features that have efficient heating and cooling, low plumbing fixtures, water efficient irrigation. It also has parking spaces that promote carpooling. So it's a special building that we're proud of. The Spanish River Library right now is not open to the public, but we hope that it opens soon. And we just want to let everyone know that we have curbside hold pickups. So that means if you put a book on hold, you can pull on into a special parking spot and we'll bring the books right out to you. So we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, Amanda. That was very interesting to hear how on board the library is with being sustainable. All right. Just wanted to familiarize you a little bit more with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy in case you are not. We are a nonprofit membership organization dedicated to promoting responsible energy choices to ensure clean, safe, and healthy communities throughout the Southeast. SACE's broad electric transportation work is housed under the Electrify the South campaign. The Electrify the South engages local and state governments, utilities, and the public in Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to advance electric transportation. One initiative of Electrify the South is our Driving on Sunshine EV Roadshow, which is led by my colleague and EV road warrior, Jason Casey, who I am joined by today. So we normally take EVs on the road and offer an all-electric driving experience. So it gives drivers an opportunity to have a comfortable, firsthand, low-pressure adventure with a knowledgeable EV driver in the passenger seat. And it offers an opportunity for lots of questions. So we hope that today's virtual ride and drive will spark your curiosity and you will have things to ask us. So we're going to show the recorded ride and drive, and then we'll open it up for questions. So if something comes to mind during the video, please send a chat. Write your question in the chat bar, and we will be happy to get to those questions after the video is over. So without further ado, let's ride. Welcome, I'm Dory Larson, the Electric Vehicle Program Coordinator with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Thanks for joining us on this virtual ride and drive. We typically host ride and drives through our Driving on Sunshine EV program, but since we're still social distancing because of COVID-19, my family got together. We've got my husband Jeff and my son Andrew, who's filming, to put together this video to demonstrate what a virtual ride and drive looks like. So why don't we go ahead and hop in the car? All right, so we're in the car. We're gonna go ahead and get started. And I think the first thing we wanna point out is how quiet it is once the car's started.
So that was it. The car is started and you can't hear a thing. It's completely silent. You can't even tell that the car started.
Great. So what's the difference between driving this car and a traditional car? Is there anything special you need to do?
There's nothing different in terms of knowing how to drive the car. If somebody knows how to drive a regular gas-powered car, then they know how to drive an electric car. The only real difference is that it's better. This car is quieter, it accelerates faster, and it's just a smoother, easier ride. But there's no challenge to it. It's not hard to do at all.
So it's kind of like going from a flip phone to a smartphone.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's hit the open road.
I'm gonna go ahead and put it in reverse. And now I'm putting it in drive. One thing I'd like to point out to you is that on my dashboard, I've got a spot that shows me how many kilowatts that I'm currently using. And so the faster I accelerate, the more kilowatts I use. Right now I'm using 3, 5. As I step on the accelerator, it's going up. And the interesting thing is when I take my foot off the accelerator, it actually gives back kilowatts to the car. And so it's showing a green bar that's currently at 4, 3. So it sometimes gives power back to the car, and now I'm accelerating again, so it's taking power from the car. Once I get on the road here, we'll play with the acceleration. Wow. So we just got up to 55 miles per hour very, very quickly.
Now, are all electric cars fast like that?
Yeah, my understanding is that all electric cars are fast like that. Now, Tesla is going to be faster than the Chevy Bolt, for example, but they all accelerate faster than a gas-powered car.
Okay, and it's that single-speed transmission that allows it to do that, so it doesn't have to work itself up to a certain RPMs in order to change gears. It can just, boom, get up and go.
It's got fewer moving parts.
Very fun. So let's talk a little bit about the cost to fuel the vehicle. How much does it cost to drive electric?
So I don't ever have to stop at a gas station. So these days people are stopping at a gas station and they're paying $2 per gallon for gas, and that number goes up and down, you know, every day in the news you see it. We don't have to ever get gas. Instead, we just plug in, and it costs about 3 cents per mile that I drive using electricity.
So if we were going to go 100 miles, it would cost about $3 worth of fuel.
That's right.
Wow. And then if gas was $2 a gallon and your car gets, say, 25 miles per gallon, it would cost about $8 to drive that same 100 miles. So even with gas being relatively cheap right now, it still is under half of the cost to drive electric.
So people are paying more money to pollute the environment.
Yeah, let's talk about the emissions. So, and the efficiency of the car. So how many miles per gallon equivalent does this car drive?
So they have a term that they call MPGE, which is the equivalent of miles per gallon. Because again, this car doesn't use any gasoline, so I can't talk about MPGs, but instead we talk about MPGE. This car gets 118 miles per gallon electrical miles per gallon. Now, when you think about the cars that are on the road right now, you know, an SUV is getting under 20 miles per hour, or 20 miles per gallon. And most cars that you see on the road are getting 20 or 30 miles per gallon.
So an electric vehicle is over 5 times as efficient as a regular car. Wow.
And it's more fun to drive.
It is more fun to drive. And I want to talk a little bit about the emissions that go with those miles. So with a traditional car, it's giving off emissions, carbon dioxide gases, nitrous oxide gases, sulfur oxide gases. With an electric vehicle, there's zero emission because they don't have a tailpipe. And they also don't have any oil changes, right? So let's talk about the maintenance. What do we have to do to maintain this car?
So like any car, you have to rotate the tires and eventually replace the tires, but you do not have to get oil changes. There's no belts that have to be traded out. There's really very little maintenance with an electric car as compared to a traditional car.
So no oil changes, no timing belts, no fuses. Basically, you are changing the windshield wipers, adding wiper fluid, and rotating your tires.
And maybe give it a wash once in a while.
Right? That does make it a lot cheaper to maintain an electric vehicle than a regular car. So they're cheaper to fuel by over half. They are cheaper to maintain. Sounds like a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
They've got fewer emissions than a traditional car. They've got far more efficiency with the driving the miles per gallon electric. Let's talk about the range. How far does this car go?
So you're sitting right now in a 2020 Chevy Bolt.
Okay.
The range for this car is 259 miles per charge. Now that's actually an estimated range. It could be more or less depending on how efficiently I drive. But that's the estimated range, just 259 miles per charge.
Wow. So do you ever worry about running out of charge?
No, I don't worry about it much at all. The average person doesn't drive anywhere near 259 miles in a given day. So no, I don't have any anxiety related to charging.
And this is where you look on the panel, you see right here, this shows you how many miles you have left. So you always have that visual of how many miles you have left before you need to plug in.
So right now it's estimating that I happen to have 168 miles left because I haven't charged in a while. But it's actually showing I could have more or less than that, again, depending on how efficiently I drive the car.
Excellent. All right, so let's talk about the bells and whistles that this car has.
Yeah, absolutely. This car and any EV has all the same bells and whistles that any new car would have. It's got Bluetooth for music. It's got hands-free for cell phone calls and that type of thing. It has heated seats, which
it's a must in Florida.
Yeah, everyone in Florida has to have heated seats, but we don't use that too often. Obviously, it's got cruise control, you know, all the bells and whistles that most cars would have. But then it also has some additional information related to the electric vehicle battery. It's showing us here that we've traveled 91.9 miles since the last charge, and it's showing us that 85% of the power has gone toward driving the car and some of the accessories. 15% of the power has gone toward climate settings, and I guess that makes sense because here we are in Florida. And then if I hit this button, this shows some additional stuff that's kind of interesting to see. Because of my technique, it says I've added 15.1 miles to the car, and that just means that I'm not accelerating too much and I ease into the brakes. So it's kind of interesting once in a while to check on this and just see how I'm doing. But these are just things that you can look at if you want to. You don't ever have to look at this stuff in terms of driving the car. It's just like driving a normal car.
So I want to go back to the energy detail. So this really shows why an electric vehicle is so much more efficient, because of the power going to the car. 85% of it is going to power the wheels, whereas with a traditional internal combustion engine, only about 20% of the gasoline that goes into the car actually powers the wheels, because so much of that energy is given off as heat waste with the combustion that's happening in the engine. So to drive a regular traditional car, you would have to be able to get about 65 miles per gallon to be as efficient and to have as few emissions coming out of the tailpipe as with a electric vehicle in the state of Florida, because of the way that our energy is sourced. But electric vehicles can even have fewer emissions if they're being powered with renewable resources like solar or wind. So we have solar panels on our roof. That means that that we're basically not generating any emissions when we're driving this car. So it can be completely fossil fuel free to power.
We're driving on sunshine.
That's right. So we wanted to talk about the cost of owning an electric vehicle, because there's a lot of misconceptions that they're far more expensive. You can get a used Bolt for under $20,000. You can get a used, lots of other types of used EVs for under $10,000. And then when you look at the cost to own, the lifetime cost to own, it's actually cheaper because of the lower maintenance that we talked about and the lower fuel costs that we talked about. So EVs are really an economical choice to be able to drive for almost anyone. All right, so let's talk about how to charge your electric vehicle. Can you tell us about how you do that?
Absolutely. The first kind of charging is called Trickle Charging. It's also called Level 1 Charging, and we use this cord right here. This came with the car, and it's real simple. You just plug it into a regular outlet, and then you plug it into the car. The car is charging now. It's as simple as that.
So how often do you charge like this?
I charge it whenever I need to. I don't necessarily charge every day, but I can. There's nothing wrong with that. The trickle charging, or the level 1 charging, goes pretty slowly. I think you might know better than I do how fast it goes.
So it charges about 5 miles per hour, so you're not going to get a lot of miles back very quickly. But if you plug it in overnight, then you would be able to get, 50 miles in 10 hours added back on?
The nice thing about trickle charging is it's just so easy. You can just plug it into any electrical outlet. When we first got an electric car, people would ask me if I was worried about finding charging stations. But the reality is there's way more electrical outlets than there are gas stations. It's easier to find a way to charge this car than a regular gas car.
I think that's a great point. Okay, so let's talk about level 2 charging in a home. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, well, this is a level 2 charger, and the advantage of level 2 charging is that it charges faster. The trickle charge, or the level 1 charger, adds about 5 miles per hour to the car. The level 2 charger adds about 25 miles per hour to the car. To do a level 2 charge, you do need a 240 outlet. So that's what this is. Let's go ahead and plug it in. The car is now charging.
How much did it cost to install the charger?
So we paid an electrician $150 to install this 240 outlet.
Okay, and then the charging stations themselves have a wide range, but you can get one without tons of bells and whistles for under $200. And the more expensive ones, the benefit of them is that they can be programmed to charge during different times of the day when it's more beneficial to take advantage of energy costs. So we just wanted to show the solar panels that are on the roof of our house, and those power our house and also power our car. So most months we have enough energy that we're making from solar power to cover having our energy needs met for our house and for our car. So thanks for taking a drive with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and we would love to see you for an in-person ride and drive once we're able to, after the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. So check us out, drivingonsunshine.org. All right, well, thanks for watching the ride and drive, and I'm going to open it up to the question and answer part of the program. So we did have a question come in from Mark, who is asking about the battery, and he says, I've been doing some research. Does not having a garage shorten the battery life, as the car would be exposed to the elements? We live in Western North Carolina, so we do get hot summers. Jason?
My understanding is that the heat does have an impact on the battery, but for the most part, it does not have a major impact on the battery. The majority of the heat actually comes from the charging system. So when you plug the car in, the electricity coming into the vehicle fast affects the chemistry of the battery more so than the external heat. There were some older cars that were getting that kind of issue back in the day, but it is less frequent in the cars that you would buy in the past, I don't know, 8 or 10 years.
Great. Thanks for answering that. Another question that Mark had was about installing a fast charger in your house for quicker charging time. And that's what the video was showing, was the level 2 charger that we installed. I will say that we drove our Nissan Leaf for 2 years, just charging it with a level 1 charger with the regular 110 outlet. But you know, it does make it faster to charge with the level 2 charging infrastructure. So that was why we went ahead and added it.
Right. Level 2 is just for a quicker turnaround time. Most people don't need it. I mean, most people's commute is within 60 miles round trip, 30 miles to work, 30 miles home. So 60 miles can be gained while you're sleeping.
Absolutely. All right. Another question is, with the car giving back kilowatts to the battery, does that add to the miles that you can drive?
Yep, absolutely. Especially in situations where like you're going uphill or downhill, you use more electricity to go uphill and you create more electricity going downhill. So it kind of breaks even and doesn't really hurt your range very much.
Exactly. So my Nissan Leaf is rated for 90 miles, but I can typically get over 100 just by driving more efficiently. So instead of, really hitting the accelerator when I get started and easing off of the accelerator when I want to brake, it starts to slow itself down and it creates better efficiency.
Yeah, coasting to a stop is the key there. I mean, if you give yourself about 4 car lengths from a stop sign, you can get almost to a complete stop and be creating electricity the whole way there.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Another question says, this is from Julia. It says, if I drive longer distances, say Florida to Pennsylvania, how long does it take to charge at level 2 charger rest stops?
So I think that it really all depends. it depends on the car. It depends on the battery pack size. Personally, I've driven from South Florida to Canada, and I haven't used level 2 when I do that situation, because usually on a road trip you would be level 3. But for example, level 2, like we've said in the past, is that you can do about 35 miles per hour when charging on a level 2. So it's ideal for, like, you get to the point where you don't need to charge at a level 3. You're staying at a hotel for the night. You can fully charge the car up to 300 miles while you're sleeping and be ready to go. But it depends on what your battery can hold. Level 2 charging is less common along the highways. Anyhow, level 2 is more for local commuting. I wouldn't suggest that for a longer trip, more than if you wanted to do 100 miles in a car that had a 100-mile range and then do another 100 miles on a level 2, it would still take you 3 to 4 hours to fully charge the battery pack again. So level 2 is not ideal for a longer trip.
Yeah, I think the confusion was we didn't mention level 3 charging in the video. So
Right.
maybe people didn't realize that that is an option. So thank you for clarifying. Level 3 charging is that
Yeah, definitely.
DC fast charge that charges you up. I guess that's the follow-up question. It says, okay, then for level 3 charging, what is the charge rate? So can you talk to
And
that?
so that will vary also by brand. But I mean, like, for example, if you had a Tesla, in about 20 to 30 minutes, you are ready to go, doubling the range that you had, basically. I mean, when Dory and I did a trip from Florida to Knoxville, Tennessee, it was basically a 20-minute stop every time. The car was ready before we were. We'd stop and go to the bathroom or go to get food, and the car was ready, and we'd actually have to hustle back to the car so we wouldn't get idle fees for leaving the car plugged in too long.
Yep, exactly. So when we did that trip from Florida to Knoxville, we stopped, I believe it was 3 times along the way. So we stopped in North Florida, and then we stopped in Macon, Georgia, and we stopped in Atlanta, and then we were on to Knoxville. So it did not really add considerable, maybe an hour to the time. And quite honestly, we've got kids, so when you're on a site, you need to break it up a little bit anyway.
It was a needed stretch and bathroom break. You know, we were planning based on the charging versus just saying, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, so maybe we'll get gas now because I have to go to the bathroom. You're planning based on the charging, not based on having to go to the bathroom. It's the same thing.
Yes. Okay, so there are some other questions that are coming in about the level 3 charging. So it says, what is where did it go? I just lost it. Is there a resource for someone doing a road trip to find level 3 chargers?
So most cars already have a GPS system in them that show you the charging stations that are compatible with your car. But there is a website and an app called plugshare.com, or just PlugShare. And that will show you all charging stations on a GPS, very similar to Google Maps. It also has like a Yelp review to let you know how well those charging stations are working. And you can plan based on that, or you can use your in-car charging system.
Very good. Okay, another question says, if the car is, this is from Jennifer, if the car is fully charged, how long will it take, or how long will it last until you have to charge again?
Okay, so that depends on how fast you're driving and how long you're driving. It depends on the car. But I mean, for example, Dory and I have both owned a Nissan Leaf, and the Nissan Leaf is rated at between 75 and 80 miles per charge for the earlier versions, but you can now get a 200-mile version of it. So it really all depends on what size battery pack the car has. You know, if you were to buy a brand new Tesla Model S today, you can get 400 miles out of the battery pack. So you're getting what you pay for, but you're also, it depends on the specific model. So like, I can't give you a definitive answer, but I mean, like the whole 5 miles per kilowatt is pretty much the average. So if you buy a car with a 20 kilowatt battery pack, you're only going to get about 80 miles.
Very good. So basically the summary of that is that it depends on the make and the model and the year. And the cool thing is that for all of the auto manufacturers, they realize that people want more miles than 100 for a range of a car. So the target that almost all of the new models are coming out at is at least 250 miles of range. And like Jason said, the Tesla's obviously a lot more, than 250, closer to 400 miles. All
and you
right.
get what you pay for. You pay more, you get more range.
The vehicle that was shown, the Bolt, has around 258 mile range, close to 260 mile range. All right. Another question from Jonathan says, do Chevy dealerships readily have Bolts available?
In my experience, they have at least 2 on the lot in most locations. I have not seen that with a lot of other dealerships like Nissan. I went to the other day and they didn't have the Leaf, but the Chevy Bolt is relatively readily available. You bought yours from St. Pete, right?
We actually leased it. Yes.
Okay.
So we found there are multiple dealerships in our area that had Bolts on the lot for test drives to be able to experience it before we purchased it. And like I said, we leased it for under $300 a month. So it's very, very economic way to commute. My husband has a commute that he needs. So.
And my understanding is actually that the Chevy Bolt and all Teslas are the highest selling vehicles so far. So like it is more likely that you will find a Chevy Bolt on a lot than most other brands, but they are getting there. Like in other states, because Dory and I both live in Florida, the Kona electric vehicle is available. The Kia Niro is available. I actually have friends that are going to be going to get the Jaguar I-Pace soon. So like they're definitely out there. You just have to go to the lot and ask. And the more people that ask, the more likely they are to get more of those vehicles. So even if you're just driving by, stopping in and asking will help encourage the demand. They don't totally understand the demand until people start asking.
That is true. Thanks for mentioning that. Another question is about level 3 charging. Again, it says, in other words, does level 3 charging heat the batteries more while charging, which may decrease its lifespan? Do you want to talk about the cooling of the level 3?
So that all depends on the specific vehicle. Some cars have a liquid cooling system, very similar to the radiator that a gas car would have, that pumps a liquid through the battery pack to keep it cool while charging fast. Now that is the reason that some cars can charge faster than other cars. So for example, the Nissan Leaf can only charge at 50 kilowatts. 50 kilowatts is about 100 miles per hour when you're charging quickly on their charging stations. Now, a Tesla can charge up to 150 kilowatts per hour. So it's 3 times as fast because it's a liquid-cooled battery pack. I believe that the Chevy Bolt is also a liquid-cooled system, but they have a software limitation of 50 kilowatts per hour. So it's similar to the Leaf in that sense, but it is a better for the battery lifespan in that sense because it's keeping it cool. The Nissan Leaf does like an air cooling system, which is still cooling the battery, but not as well, I guess.
So yes, they are in the process of, when you're in the process of level 3 charging, there are systems in place to cool the battery so that it does not have the issue with the degradation.
Right. Yeah, I have a friend that did 450-mile trip in one day with the Nissan Leaf, and he said that the cooling system was enough to be able to keep going on his trip. The long term on that, I can't guarantee, but definitely the liquid cooled systems are a better function if the vehicle has it.
So another question is about the back seat. It says what kind of configuration can the seats do? What is the cost of outside charging? Does the Bolt have a dual motor option? So do you want to take any of that, Jason?
Well, I know the Bolt is only a single motor option. I believe you have the 40-60 split on the back seat.
Correct.
And I don't know what is the cost of outside charging. It really all depends on the machine. People can do it for free or they can charge you a different price rate. I mean, I've seen as little as as 60 cents for your first hour of charging and 10 cents for every hour after that, which ends up being cheaper than charging at home. But I've also seen 35 cents per kilowatt. It really depends on the charging station.
And when, just to add to that, about the seats, they do flip all the way down, so that you get a large cargo area for the back hatchback section plus the back seats. And then for the outside charging question, just to add that the apps, like Jason mentioned, PlugShare, they will show you how much the cost of charging is before you plug in, so that you're not ever surprised. There's quite a bit of community charging that's actually free. So a lot of municipalities offer charging at no cost or at very low cost of the electricity.
And I believe the Boca ones that Lindsay was mentioning before are free. Is that correct, Lindsay?
That's correct. Yes, we don't charge. Or we don't, yeah.
Very good. A question.
We don't charge to charge. That's what she was trying to say.
Right, I got lost.
We definitely charge you.
It charges. It is complimentary.
There we go. Another question says, what should people know or look for if shopping for a used EV?
Well, I would definitely make sure that you are happy with the way the car looks. The lifespan of these cars lasts way longer than most people think. My very first Tesla I bought had 100,000 miles on it when I bought it. And I drove it for another 60,000 miles before some kid in a Jeep hit it. So it lasted as long as I could keep it. And I did not have any major mechanical issues with it. I had a Nissan Leaf for 2 years that I bought for $7,000. And when I traded it in to buy my Tesla, I traded it in for $5,000. So it only cost me $1,000 a year to have it. It was an excellent experience. It depends on the model, but for the most part, there's very little battery degradation to the vehicles. If you go on all the Facebook forums, like depending on the specific car, like a Chevy Bolt forum or a Nissan Leaf forum, you can ask the specific questions of what to keep an eye out for. But there's so many different models. It's really hard to just give you an umbrella that's like, oh, well, this is what you should look for. You can't guarantee any of that. For a used car, you just kind of got to look and make sure that it's the car that you want.
I would echo what Jason just said. We bought our Nissan Leaf used in 2017. It had 35,000 miles on it. It had come off of a lease that had started in 2015. So it's a 2015 car that we paid $8,400 for. Here it is in 2020. And I have really done nothing to it in terms of maintenance other than rotating the tires and putting new windshield wiper blades on it. So if we were to do it, the battery has held up, it's degraded 1 bar. So I think that the most important thing to look for with the used EV is the health of the battery itself and making sure that it hasn't lost too many of the bars. And there's an app, Jason, I believe is it Happy Leaf?
Leaf Spy is the one that I used. But you have to buy an adapter to plug into the ODB2 port or OBD. It's an acronym that is the data port that all car people inspect with. But you can actually monitor the battery health on a Nissan Leaf. I didn't do that when I bought my first Leaf, and it was completely fine in my situation. But it is an extra $20 adapter you can buy and an app you can get for your phone that could save you money if you get a battery that you feel is healthier than another used car. If you're comparing two side by side and one has 97% battery health and the other one has 95% battery health, that 2% could save you money in the end.
Very good. Another question about batteries. This is from Raymond, and he's asking, what is the lifespan of a Bolt battery and how much does it cost for a replacement?
My understanding is that it's a 500,000 mile battery pack, much like what Tesla is touting. I do not know what the cost of replacement is, but the overall goal for the future of electric vehicles is that would only cost $100 per kilowatt. And I believe that Chevy is at about $150 per kilowatt. So 150 times 62, I'd have to pull out a calculator to figure that out. Give me 1 second, and I'll just give you the general math of what I'm understanding it should be.
And while he's calculating that, I will say
it's about $9,000. Sorry, I'm being quick. It's about $9,000 to replace the battery pack, but you're also doubling the life of the vehicle. So saying that, like, worrying about that is not necessary, especially in the youth of the battery, since most of these cars are less than 3 years old. But in the event that, let's say you buy one in 5 years after it came out, so you buy a 2017 in 2022. If you had to, at the very worst case scenario, replace the battery pack, it's probably going to cost you about $9,000. But again, you'd be doubling the lifespan of the car.
Well, and to add to that, the batteries are warranted for all of the major manufacturers for 10 years. I'm sorry, 8 years or 100,000 miles. So it's a pretty long warranty on the battery.
Right. It's longer than bumper to bumper. Most people think of their car in bumper to bumper standard because that's what they do with gas cars. And then you kind of get gypped, right? But in this, they take care of you on the motor and the battery, because the vehicles are so new to the entire market that they want to give you that extra comfort level.
Okay, here's another question about models. Can you give a rundown of some models that are all electric, Jason?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, you have the Nissan Leaf, which they have like 2 generations of. If you get one that's before 2017 or older, it would be the first generation. That would be a like less than 100-mile battery pack. But you can get those for as cheap as I've seen $5,000 to buy one used. It just all depends on the miles. The Chevy Bolt, which is about 230 to 250 miles, depending on how you drive. Every Tesla doesn't make a gas car. BMW has the i3. Let's see. Volkswagen has an electric Golf. Kia has the Niro electric vehicle. What is it? The Hyundai Kona is an electric vehicle. Like, there's so many that are coming out that it's like hard to keep track. It's like everybody is coming out with at least one in the next year. I know that between 2020 and 2021 is supposed to be like flooding the market, but with the coronavirus, the factories have slowed down and stuff like that. I know that the production of the Chevy Bolt has increased. It's just right now we're in a weird place, but there are a lot coming. I mean, that Volkswagen is even bringing back the microbus that they had, and it's going to be called the Buzz, B-U-Z-Z, because that's more of like an electric sound. And so that's going to be a cool electric van that everybody wants.
Excellent. Question from Karen. She says, can you repeat the warranty for the battery? So it's 8 years, 100,000 miles is the warranty for the battery.
Yeah, my very first Tesla that I bought actually was a 2012, and I'm gonna hit the warranty in August, which is crazy to me. You know, like I haven't had any issues with it at all, but it's crazy that I've had the car that long. You know, that it's an old car. But it seems more advanced than most cars you can buy off the lot.
That's true. Here's a question about increasing my power bill. So how much will it increase my power bill?
So in most cases, like it was said in the video, it costs you about 3 cents per mile. So to go, let's say, for example, 100 miles, you drive 100 miles a week, or even let's say 200 miles a week. That's going to cost you $6 a week to charge your car. That's not very much. In my case, when I bought my Nissan Leaf, I drove 10,000 miles in the first year, and that only cost me about $200 worth of electricity. So you're talking about maybe about $30, $20 to $30 a month that your power bill will go up, but you're also going to save about $200 a month in gas. So it costs about 1/3 the cost that you would think it would, just because energy efficiency is so much better. On top of that, if you have solar on your house already, it costs you about 1 cent per mile. So it's almost nothing.
Exactly. Here's a question from Jennifer. She says, what is the safety of electric versus gas-powered vehicles?
So that'll vary by brand. I know specifically that Tesla and Chevy have very high ratings. Tesla specifically has a 5-star rating. I believe Chevy is like a 4.5 star. So it's very, very safe. The argument of the battery versus a gas tank. So most people don't think about the fact that they're driving on a big tank of flammable liquid. That's how the combustion happens. So it is a liquid that is designed to light on fire versus an enclosed, safe form of energy that is only dangerous if it's impacted. And even then, there's systems in place to prevent that. You know, if you hear stories about a Tesla lighting on fire, that's one in almost, millions, because you don't hear about it when a gas car lights on fire every single day. Gas cars are always lighting on fire, but you only hear about the electric vehicles because it's something new and they want to highlight it.
Very good. Another question is about the tax credit. Can we talk about that a little bit? So which manufacturers still qualify for, what is the federal tax credit and what vehicles still apply?
Okay, so years ago, they came out with this federal tax credit for electric vehicles. Originally, it was if you sell an electric vehicle that has a battery pack large enough to be the majority of the drivetrain on it, you can be eligible for up to $7,500 credit on your taxes. Now, you have to have the liability of $7,500. So if you don't owe the government $7,500, you can't get $7,500. You can get whatever you're eligible for based on your tax liability, but you can't get the full $7,500 unless you really owe that kind of money. That being said, there are only 2 companies that are no longer eligible for it because they sold too many cars. If you sell too many electric cars, you are no longer eligible. And so Tesla and Chevy have already sold more than 200,000 cars, so they are no longer eligible for that. Every other vehicle is eligible. If you were to buy like a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, it's a plug-in minivan that gives you 40 miles electric but still kicks over to gas, you are eligible for the full $7,500.
And the tax credit can roll over, so you don't have to take it all in 1 year, is my understanding. Is that correct, Jason?
You probably would know more about that than me. I've never actually applied for it because I bought my cars used.
That's my understanding. And then I also just wanted to point out that the reason we were able to get the lease with the Bolt for as low as we did is that Chevy, even though they've discontinued being eligible for the federal tax credit, they were putting $10,000 cash on the hood, and that deal has been extended through the summer. So
excellent.
Now's a good time to be looking.
Karen said that she agrees, that she believes it rolled over.
Right. And I also know that some of the dealerships are willing to work with people that, like, maybe if you're retired and you don't have federal tax income, that they would take the federal tax credit and then pass the savings along to the customer. So if you're, wanting to negotiate with the dealer, that might be a point that you can try to work as well. All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat bar. If I have missed something that you asked, if you wouldn't mind just retyping it in real quick. And I'll give it a second to make sure that we have covered everybody's questions and made sure that everybody feels that they've been answered to their satisfaction. Looks like we do not have any others coming in. So I apologize. I kept switching to this slide because my mouse kept disappearing, so I couldn't look at the chat bar. That's why that was happening. But now it's time to look at this slide. So we hope that you enjoyed today's webinar, and I would invite you, if you haven't already, to stay connected with us via our social media channels. So we have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then also join our Electrify the South mailing list to stay current on our EV events and to receive updates via our bi-monthly newsletter. So we are also hosting 3 other virtual ride and drives. So if you enjoyed the webinar today and would like to share it with a friend and get them to take a look, or if you're trying to convince your partner to go into an electric vehicle with you, invite them, encourage them to attend. So we have 3 coming up. The next one is going to be Saturday, June 27th. That's going to be in partnership with the League of Women Voters in Palm Beach County. Then we also have a ride and drive scheduled on July 9th, which is a Thursday, and then also Thursday, July 30th. And all 3 of those are from noon until 1. So if you would like to get more information on them, we'll follow up with an email for those of you that participated today. But you can also go to drivingonsunshine.org. And then if you scroll down, there's a button that says register for a virtual ride and drive. And then you can select which of the 3 upcoming webinars you'd like to get registered for. Additionally, at some point, once COVID has, the numbers are going down and we feel that it's safe, we will, at some point be going back to a in-person ride and drive events. So we're hoping to get back on the road as soon as it is safe to do so, and we would love to see you in person. So that same website, drivingonsunshine.org, when we do resume the in-person drives, is where you can find out where the roadshow is coming. So I hope that you guys will all stay in touch with us. Be safe, be well, and until next time, signing off. Thanks for joining.